Welcome back to Learning to Program using the Godot game programming engine. In this video, I want to cover something that I've been studying a lot lately, and it covers two important things that we need to cover while learning about Godot. But I've been learning about making a game juicy, which means adding that polish that makes the game fun. And this usually includes like particle systems and other stuff, but in this one we're going to look at adding a simple brush that when you walk through it, it kind of jitters a little bit, and it just makes the character feel more part of the world, and the world feel more alive. So let's jump into that. So first we're going to quickly make a new scene. This will be our brush scene. So let's make a this we need an Area2D, which is a new type of node. It's another physics node, but it doesn't have substance like kinematic, static, or a rigid body. It's simply an area that we can do collision detections with. And if you look at this warning, it says it needs a collision shape, so we'll add one, and of course a shape needs a or a collision shape 2D needs a shape defined, so we'll use a circle. Alright, so I'm going to zoom in here on this. Also, I'm going to add a sprite so I can see my little item there. And let's go into art and other and bush. Oops, need to get that highlighted. We'll put that there. Let's scoot it up so that it's right on the axis there. And let's scoot this collision shape up, and we'll zoom it in a little bit. And this doesn't have to be perfect, but this is the area that's going to trigger when the character moves into it. Alright, so we're going to save this, and I need to rename it first. I'll call it bush. Save, and I'll just save it right there. And then let's see, let's go back to our level and let's add a couple of these. So we'll add them. You can add them just by dragging in and dropping. And so we can add another one. We'll add one up here. And you know, if you were being picky, you would probably want to make sure they're right on the floor there. Alright, so now I've got my bushes in there, and I just made all these children of each other. There we go. And you could, if you wanted to organize, you could add a node and call it like bushes, right? And then you could add all your bushes under there, and that way you could organize it a little bit. But anyways, this is not necessary, so we'll pull those out for now. Just because we don't want to confuse anyone. So I've got my bushes. Let's move my player character down a little bit so he doesn't have to fall so far every time I want to play. And let's see. So we need to make one of these trigger when the player runs into it. So to do that, we're going to use the signals that we used back when we were learning about button clicks. We're going to use the same signals here. And we're going to use this function called, or event called body entered. So we just double click. Oh, I need a script first to attach it to, so let's put one here on the bush and create. And I already had one here, spoiler, but just clean out all of your default template code except for that, and then go to your bush node body entered, double click, and make sure and add it there to your Area2D node. You can leave this default and connect. So we'll get this little function here. So now I can tell that this is working by doing print, and we'll just say something simple like hi. Alright, so I'll play, and then when my character walks over here, now I got some by default, and that's because they're hitting things, probably the floor and whatnot, but if my character walks in, I get another one. And if I walk out and then I walk back in, I'll get another one. So that's what we want. We want to see that collision. So what I want to do here well, two things. First, I want to make sure that it's the player that entered instead of, so let's leave my print high. Now I only want to do this when the player enters. So I could do a couple things. So first off, if you look at this, this body being passed is the body that's colliding with this area, or entering this area. So in my case, when my player enters, it's actually my player node right here, kinematic body. And so, another spoiler, I'm using a group. Oh, I gotta edit here. There we go. So I could look at the name, so I could do something like this. I could say, let me jump into my code. I could say if body.name equals player, then print high. Alright, so let's try this, see if this works. There. So I didn't get my other ones, but I did get my message when my player entered. Alright? So that's okay, but you know, what if I wanted this to work for monsters or something too? I would have to add an and here, say, or an or statement actually, or body.name equals, you know, monster1. Well, that starts to get pretty tedious. So what I can use instead is I can use a functionality of Godot called isInGroup. So it's node isInGroup, and this will allow me to, and I can add a group here. So I could just say, you know, I could have something generic like moves bushes, right? Or yeah, let's do that. Moves bushes, right? And then I can print high. Well, my level is obviously not going to have that on anything, but you know, my player might. So all I have to do is come over here to my kinematic body, and here in the inspector, click the node one, and instead of signals, I have groups, and I could say moves bushes, and add that. And so you can add as many as you want. And usually I'll have one called player, and that helps me identify the player real easily. But I also have this moves bushes, right? So now when I play, my player walks over, I get that message, and that's because he has that moves bushes group associated with the player, and this bush is looking for that moves bushes group in order to trigger its event. Alright, so that's awesome, but let's do something a little bit more interesting than just print a debug message. So this is where we're going to look at the second thing that we're going to learn in this video, and that is animations. So we looked at an animated sprite before, which allows us to flip between sprite nodes, but in this one we're going to look at the animation player, which is much more powerful and allows us to change all these values of an inspector and play those back over a period of time. So what we're going to do is we're going to animate our sprite, and we're just going to, let's just jiggle it a little bit. Alright, so that'll give us a nice little jiggle animation, which I think will make it feel pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my animation player. I'm going to come down here, and there's this animation resource editor down here. This allows me to edit my animation resource, and I'm going to click this button, which allows me to create a new animation, and I'm going to call it move bush. Alright, so it shows up here, and I believe you can drop them down and you can have multiple animations there, and I can change the time here. So this is a full second long, but let's change it to let's go with 4 for now. We may adjust that later. You can change the scale of this by changing this. So if you need more precise control, you can move this down, and if you want it longer, you can move it up. So we'll move it about there, give us a little bit of room. And then what we do is we want to record notice when I have this animation player in here, I get these little keys next to it, and that stands for keyframe. And what I want to do is I want to record the position that I started at. So I'm going to hit that little key button. It's going to ask me about inserting a new track, and I'm going to hit create. And then over here, you see I have sprite position, so that's this sprite, right? That's the node that it's going to modify. It has colon and then the position, so I'm going to store the position property, and then it has over here in my timeline, I have a little white dot, and that represents that point in time. And then this is called my scrub line, and I can scrub forward and backwards, and I'm going to record another period. So I'm going to scrub it forward a little bit, and here let's just wiggle it over to the left a little bit. Let's see, what did I do? 1, 2, 3, 4 ticks. And so then I'm going to record that. I'm going to go back to 0 and 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to scrub forward. Whoops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to record that. And let's see how this works. Now I think this will end here, so I may want to move it back, but we'll try that just to see how it happens. And I need to trigger this, right? So I've created the animation, but I'm not playing the animation. And all I have to do that is back here, instead of my print command, I need to get that node, right? So I get node AnimationPlayer. I'm not sure why I didn't get the help there. We'll probably find out in a second. And I just call the play command. Alright, so let's play that. And as soon as I enter, oh, I got a debug message, but this will explain what happened. Animation not found. Oh, I have to tell it which animation to play. There we go. So, what did I call that animation? Move bush. So here I have to say move bush. There we go. Yeah. So there, as I enter bushes, they do a nice little wiggle. Doesn't that help it feel a little bit more alive there? I like that. So yeah, and you can do all kinds of other things. Let's actually check out real quick here. If I go back to my animation player, and I'm going to select this first one, and so now I can scrub through and actually watch the animation, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to the first one, and I'm also going to record the scale. I'll record the scale. It's going to create a new track for the scale, and I'm going to scale it up a little bit at this time frame. Let's go up to 1.1. Let's make it subtle. Right? And I'm going to scoot him up just a little bit so that he stays level with the ground. And then when we come back, I forgot to record it. 1.1, and scoot him up just a little bit, and then I'm going to keyframe both that one, and I'm going to update that keyframe, right? So now if I scale back here, alright, so I'm staying on like I wanted to, and then over here, did I start up? Yeah, I need to scoot that up. And then over here, I'm going to move my scale back down and record that. Alright? So, if I play this whole thing, should move over, get a little bit bigger, and then I want it to scale back down. Right? So let's scale that. Yeah. Oh. There we go. As you can tell, I'm not an expert with this. But yeah, there I'm gonna. So here I'm starting off normal. I get a little bit bigger as I go to the left, and then I shrink back down as I go to the right. Let's just see how that works. Yeah, kind of gives it a little bit more emphasis as it goes. So anyways, you can do all kinds of things there. One last quick thing I wanted to show about these, something I think is really interesting, is so we've animated some properties here, but we can also come down here and use this plus sign, and we can manually add these tracks. So these tracks were added by me clicking the key icon, but I can also manually add them. And there's one here called call function track, right? And you pick which node you're going to add the function to, and you get this green line, right? And then anywhere in my animation, I can add a dot by clicking this plus sign. Make a liar out of me. Oh, there it is, right there. There's a green dot, so it did work. And you edit it by clicking here, which shows this, and then in this name is where you type the function that you want to call. So we'll call it end anim, right, for end animation. Alright, or actually let's do end push move. Okay, so that shows that this name is going to be very specific to this this animation. So then up here in my script, I can add my own function called end bush move. So it has to replicate this just exactly, and then I can do something else. So I can like print animation ended, right? And now if you watch closely, as soon as I hit the bush it doesn't happen, but as soon as that animation stops, that message prints. So anyways, that's really neat. You can if you had a longer animation, you could trigger the next kind of event to happen. If you had something you wanted to happen after it, so if you had like a say an animation for a bomb and it had a little sizzle and maybe the cord got shorter, and then at the end you could trigger the explosion which caused the character to move or whatever, all that kind of stuff. You could do that with this. So I think that's pretty interesting and useful to know about. Alright, so I think that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.